Start streaming.
Hi, welcome to This Week in Property. I'm Jayashri Kurup, I'm editor MBTV, and I have with me Prabhakar Sinha, as usual, the real estate editor of the Times of India. And we're talking about is JP moving towards resolution. Very significant day today. The COC is meeting today, and as we speak, there is a lot of excitement around this. And discussing this is Mr. Rajendra Kumar Gupta, NCLT expert. We have Mr. Abhishek Kaushik, he's a real estate lawyer. And we have Vivek Kumar, who's a JP buyer, one among many who are struggling to get their houses. So let's quickly start with Mr. Gupta. Sir, let's start with the first thing. We've heard that JP made an offer. We've heard that NBCC has sweetened its offer. We've heard that there are so many things happening, and the JP buyers are very keen to know what is the state.
No, let's understand two parts.
Yes.
JP offer was not equivalent to the NBCC or Suraksha. They are different.
Right.
JP was trying a resolution in a sense that if the 90% of the COC member vote and company comes out of the resolution process, that's a different word.
Right.
The other proposition which is derived by NBCC and Suraksha are there basically to take over the projects and the companies during the resolution process. So now JP story as far as concerned, had the JP was to be considered, they made a bid long back 10,000 crore and the lenders did not accept it for the credibility reasons, and that is still sustained, I believe so, and the efforts made by Mr. God to convince the home buyers, being a financial creditor and the having, because they are the substantial part of the voting today, considering that issue, we can't consider that today what the COC is going on is majorly for 12A. That may be the part of the agenda to discuss as a whole, but today the meeting is going on to consider the offers, revised offers to a certain extent is made by NBCC and Suraksha. And so let's understand that NBCC offers and Suraksha, how the COC takes it up today.
Right.
Not of JP.
It's a JP.
No.
No,
No,
the
no,
JP
no,
offer
no,
is not
no,
being taken.
I don't think the JP offer might be discussed, but that's not an offer in a resolution process. I'm just trying to say.
Yeah.
That
But it
offer
will
is not
put
for
on
the
vote.
resolution process.
It will not put on vote.
It will not put on. It may be put on vote tomorrow as an alternative proposition if the people wants it. But that is impractical position in the sense, because for that you need a 90% voting in favor of
But
12A.
that will be decided only after it is put on vote. No?
Right. So what so the precisely in that the lenders are the major part of it. So if the lenders are not agreeing, then the 90% will not reach. So that's what my perception is.
Okay.
That the efforts made by the JP with respect to the 12A proposition, wo abhi, I find it a difficult,
Right. Let's go to Abhishek. Abhishek, the JP buyers have been waiting for a long time. Would you care to make your opening remarks?
Yes, I would say, as taking cue from what Mr. Gupta had to say, Mr. JP made its offer in April 2018 this year, which certainly was not acceptable to the home buyers. They have suffered for a very long period of time, and to give them another eye candy or an eye wash, certainly nobody is going to believe it anymore. So they had to, and I think they have already made up the mind that JP offer is out of the picture. Now what we have today is two offers, one by NBCC, which is a state-backed corporation, and another is Suraksha. If you analyze both the offers, one would see that the sweetened offer, as you rightly put the word, of NBCC is more comprehensive. It looks after the interest of home buyers, it looks after the interest of major lenders, creditors, banks, and it also has something to offer upfront. The only problem, as I see it, is the time gap which it has proposed to hand over the possession. Now, as we know, the buyers have been waiting for a very long time.
Right.
NBCC proposes that they will try to give the possession by 2021 or 2023, if I am not entirely incorrect.
Project-wise.
Yeah, in project-wise. So one has to actually look forward to, when the COC meets, what they should really look forward to is how much this time gap, what is the project, and in what phased manner the projects will be completed and handed over to the home buyer. They should see the fruits of the money, which has, according to me, has been lost into insignificance for a very long time. So let's hope this NBCC offer and COC is able to resolve this problem.
Is there any improvement on the timeline which NBCC has now offered?
As I understand it, no.
No, they have.
2021 to 2023 is
No,
what
they
I
have,
understand.
they have, earlier the period was
5 years.
between 3 to 5 year, now they have the upper side period is a 4 year, and they have
23.
reduced the period for deliveries because the projects where the structures are already there, so they will be starting from 2020 itself, so that there is an improvement in the offer to that extent.
So Vivek, as a home buyer, you're representing a large number of home buyers. What is the mood among the home buyers today?
So the mood is obviously positive because one of the things last almost 10 years people are waiting for their houses and they are looking for a resolution, and in the whole process it has gone to Supreme Court, IBC and all these things.
Right.
So they are like the sufferers.
Right.
So if anything coming positive, like okay, we are going towards a resolution and the NBCC and Suraksha both are interested, obviously the mood is positive. And I can say, and it's my also personal opinion, home buyers are in favor of NBCC because of their offer. Now the one point which has been raised about the duration and timeline. Now yeah, earlier it was 5 years, and which was like more, which was like concern for the buyers. But now they have kind of revised it from 5 years to 4 years, and then also restructured the delivery. Similarly, Suraksha is also offering minimum 3 years period, which is like 1 year. So people who have waited for 10 years are still looking for a credible partner and backing of the governments, rather than just going for the offer of like JP, where obviously credibility is the issue. And you can't establish that credibility once all over again and then promise something and not deliver. Similarly with Suraksha, who is like concerned about and only investing 50 crores, which they have offered in their proposal, like they are also kind of thinking, okay, what will happen to my money? So the bidders who is not sure about, okay, they are ready to invest, how they expect that home buyer will trust them? So these are some of the factors which favors NBCC. Obviously, we are still kind of the process, like we have to vote, and I would request every home buyer to at least vote, whatever is their choice, but at least go and vote, and then we can see what's the outcome.
The issue of Suraksha as far as concerned, Suraksha is not dependent on their in-house funding. If you see their offer, they are asking for 3,000 crore rupees working capital loan also from the bank.
Yeah.
So that is, I don't think so the bankers will be in a mood to take out from one X project and then give it to the Y.
Yes.
So considering that, as far as if you compare to that with NBCC have now made a front offer of 1,500 crore to the lenders and 200 crore in the equity, right, for whatever. So now it's a 4 times that, and then one has to also understand that the kind of the infrastructure feasibility with regard to the construction industry is concerned, what NBCC possesses, Suraksha has not
And
touching
that
anywhere to that
experience.
extent.
So one thing I want to understand here in this case,
Yes.
that in the revised offer that NBCC has brought in now how much damages or how much penalty for the delay period?
What they have done is, they are
Mhm.
saying, earlier they were talking about the 25% in their earlier offer of the 5 rupees, so precisely 1 rupees 25 paisa. But
5
now what,
rupees? I couldn't get it.
no, earlier offer which was there, they were supposed to pay 25% of the penalty, that was their offer
Agreed.
earlier.
Okay.
Penalty agreed.
So
Okay.
that becomes 1 rupees 25 paisa as
And the
against 5
penalty was
rupees in
at
the
the rate of-
agreement.
penalty was at the rate of 8%.
No,
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 no, no, no, no, 5 rupees,
rupees.
contractual I were talking about.
Okay, contractual.
Now the NBC has said ki we will give 5 rupees only, whatever the contractual is there, we will give. But if the area is increasing, then the home buyer has to shell out little extra money. If it is decreasing to certain extent, then that much will be adjusted. And the penalty what they
Extra
are,
money at what rate?
no, same rate, whatever they were allotted, because right now they are increasing the rate today. It's a proportionate, if the area is increasing at the same rate we are paying.
Okay.
And what the NBC said, we are not making the penalty payments upfront. Whenever we will offer the possession, we will adjust till that date, basically whatever the penalties are there. So in a true sense, the sanctity of a contract, whatever it was with the
Original,
is
JP,
maintained.
has been maintained by NBCC at this
The new
stage.
offer.
Yeah.
This is something that we want each of the JP buyers to understand. as Mr. Gupta is telling us, Rajendra Gupta, the MBCC offer is actually respecting the sanctity of the agreement.
Contract, yeah.
The contract.
In the revised offer.
In the
Yes.
revised offer.
Yes.
What it's saying is that if you have got extra square feet, more than what was promised in your contract, at the same rate at which you bought the house, you have to pay for the extra square feet. If the square feet are reduced, the same amount is going to be
Adjusted against the
Adjusted
balance
against
amount
the
payable by them.
balance amount payable by them. The compensation that you get will be at the rate of 5 rupees.
5 rupees per square, but the
If it
contract.
is agreed upon in the contract.
Which is agreed upon in the contract.
5 rupees per square feet per month.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it.
Viewed in that respect, I would say Vivek's suggestion that every home buyer should go and vote at least becomes very important.
Yes.
Not only you have to understand this, you have to go and vote.
Let me
That's
tell
when the
everybody
vote
as a
becomes-
home buyer, to every home buyer. Earlier, the home buyer's grievance was that they do not stand anywhere in the insolvency process.
Right.
Now, after the 6th June 2018 amendment, the status of a financial creditor has been given to the home buyer. So each of the home buyer is also equally responsible for the successful resolution of this JP. So each, as an interested person, as a stakeholder, my expectation is that every member of a COC who is a home buyer must vote and consider the actual position, the credibility of a person, and whatever because everything is coming to you, whether the offer is there, everything will be shared with you, and give vote and take to that extent that as you are giving a national vote because it is in your personal favor today.
Absolutely.
And the point is, if you look at the structure of COC, the home buyers own the maximum percentage.
No, that's why I said the success or a failure of a resolution is dependent on the
More than
home
Home
buyer.
buyers. And even if home buyer,
65.
so 60,
54%.
around 54-60%. So
Yesterday's resolution, yesterday's COC constitution say home buyers 54% and
And
there's about-
46% is
Yeah.
that. No, but one thing I want to understand, that for a resolution to be adopted, now the 51% vote should be in favor of resolution.
Yes.
It can be adopted, because earlier it was 65 or 66%.
66 it was.
66%.
Yeah.
Now that has been reduced to 51%.
You know, it's a issue is it is reduced to 51%
And that's a big thing, I believe, because of 66%, no resolution could be adopted,
Yeah.
because that much vote was never coming.
And here it is more important in the sense is because one side is the in any manner, you know, it is achievable figure today.
Yeah.
Right.
It is achievable
And
figure
home buyer
today.
can dictate the whole resolution.
Because
Yeah.
if I tell the figure, if I remember the figure, last resolution, home buyers percentage was around 34%. That's the maximum. And then adding lenders percentage, it easily can cross 51%.
So how do the home
So-
buyers vote? Let's also tell the home buyers.
Yeah, so home buyers, first of all, they have to kind of go to the site, JP Infotech sites. They have to enter their units, which is there in PAL, and log in there. They will get an SMS on their register number. They can go, and then after that they can log in, and they can see all the resolution there, and they can vote.
Even otherwise, I just add here, every one of you on your email ID would be receiving
Communication.
an email from the authorized representative who is representing the home buyers in the COC.
Yes.
So once you will open that mail, every instruction is there how to vote it and which resolution has to be voted in what manner.
Till what time is the voting open?
No, it will
It
depend.
is not announced yet. I think it will
So-
be, but normally
It will
it's
be for a week,
36
sir.
hours to 48 hours that voting line is
So
open.
if you are a JP buyer, or if you know a JP buyer, please make sure that you advise them to put in their vote. Your vote will determine who will build your house. And if, the reason why we are discussing all the possible options is because today, as most of the experts have said, there have been offers on the table. There's a Suraksha offer, there's a NBCC offer, and there's a JP offer. The JP offer may or may not be considered in
Gupta, you will be
today's
able to tell, even
discussion.
Adani was trying to
No,
make
Adani was too late. In
It
fact,
was
you know,
late.
it was too late.
Was trying to make
He
a
was
new road
speculating.
because-
No. It's the question is the two are putting up, and then I keep on looking at that, and I say, no, but now I can put it because I have evaluated
That's
two of
unfair.
them.
That's unfair.
That's a pretty unfair because as a businessman, as anything situation, you have to be in the same fray, and then you vote it.
That's
Normally in ABCD it is not allowed.
Yeah.
But tell me one thing, sir. Now, if suppose this no resolution could be adopted, then what will happen?
You know, everybody should know that 30th April is the last day for the resolution period to be over.
the 270
Unless until today COC decides and they have a reason to get exclusion of a certain period of time, because in the law there is no proposition to extend the period, there is only a proposition to exclude the period. Like in this case the earlier 1 year period was excluded when the matter was before the Honorable Supreme Court.
That's very special direction.
Similarly, now if any reason is there, it might get increased for 15 days, 20 days, 30 days, if the reasons are there. Or if they adopt it today and then if the voting is there and if it is there. If it is not for any reason, what your question is, then the company goes into a liquidation as per the law. But there is a judgment that even in the liquidation, the company has to maintain its status as an ongoing concern. So it will run as it is, but the say of a home buyer will not be there tomorrow. That's a major issue.
That helps no one.
Home buyer
No,
will not be there tomorrow means?
That
Means liquidation
Once
process, the
RBC
liquidator role will come into play. Not
No,
a-
so that even the creditor's role will
as
not be
a
there?
creditor role will be there. I'm not saying that.
No. If the home buyer is not there, then the creditor will also bank.
So I'm saying the
creditor will also-
COC's decision
Yeah,
power is over.
defunct. Yeah, it is over.
It is
RBC
over.
RBC
So
process
as a
is
home
over.
buyer, as a financial creditor, what rights you can exercise under the resolution process, the same rights will not be able to exercise in the liquidation process.
Yeah.
That's the question.
And today
And I
as a
don't feel
COC
so. I don't feel so that the liquidation is the answer to this
They
particular
can't be, because
company.
liquidation is basically scrapping it and selling it off. So what happens is
No,
you
it-
take the assets on the face
In a
value.
true
and then
sense,
you
in a true sense, sorry to say, but it's a true sense, liquidation always favor the secured creditor. Let's mind it.
Yeah.
The home buyer is an unsecured creditor. So
And-
the liquidation is a,
So here is the problem, sir. Home buyer is a part of the COC. And COC is constituted by the secured creditors only. So how one can put,
no.
No.
Issue is, COC was never constituted by the secured creditors. The COC was constituted by a financial creditor.
okay,
And the right to become a member of a COC has come when the IBBI has amended section 5(8)
yeah.
and 5(7), where the status to a home buyer was given as a financial creditor.
Yeah, so now when the vote happens, in that voting, even the home buyer's vote is at the same pedestal of that.
As a financial creditor,
of the
right
other
now there is no
secured
question of a secured or unsecured.
So even the FD holder is also having the same vote?
Yes.
Today?
Same.
Yes,
They are all financial creditors in IFL.
because vote is not the with number of person. The vote is with respect to
Yeah,
your
proportion.
Proportion of the
Of your
amount
holding.
which is there.
Of your holding.
Right.
That's-
And the issue is the difference between two, what you raised a query to me, that in a resolution process, the company come out of the in the normal position, or project comes out in a normal position. As soon as the company goes into the liquidation and then whatever the money is realized,
Yeah, then it falls.
then it is according to the section 53 waterfall it will
Yeah,
come.
waterfall.
And in that waterfall, the bankers will be the first in the
Charge.
So it's very
But then it
important.
will- no,
That's a-
Yeah, Prabhakar, he's making a point. That's
So
important.
in this scenario, it's very important for the home buyers to ensure that there is a resolution rather than liquidation.
Right,
And
yes.
for that, every buyer has to vote and ensure that they utilize the maximum 54% of the share in favor of one of the bidders.
And today, as part of the COC, you have a lot of rights.
Yes.
Tomorrow, if you don't vote, what will happen is that it will go into liquidation, and in that process, your role becomes much lower,
Lower.
than
Yeah.
the secured financial.
Obviously, in
creditor.
case of a liquidation, you will be positioned as the lowest one. If any money is left, then you will get that, and that is, we know that
So-
even if assets are there's so much of assets, but still we know that what's the risk we are carrying.
Right. So let me come to the queries. We've got a large number of queries that are coming in. We've got Kailash Chaturvedi of Noida who says, I'm a JP buyer and there are 2 to 3 consumer bodies fighting for justice. One body wants buyer's money back. another body wants project to get completed. Now a buyer like me is confused and don't know whom to support. What should I do? What is good, to ask for your money back or push for completion?
Now, as far as the question of the money back is concerned, today in the company status there is no money back.
Right.
Let's understand.
There is no money on the table that you can just immediately get
That
back.
offer which was made, that option was made available at that point of time by the honorable, before the honorable Supreme Court, the people who wanted the return or a position. So that offer is now more open today. So you can't get that offer today. The only situation is that if, as a home buyer, what I personally feel, the interest of every individual as a home buyer should be that he should get his home, what he booked for, right? And the money whatever you have paid and the little bit money whatever you now have to pay to them. So you look for a resolution in the manner that you get your home back. Because today what offer is there, you have a credible developer, whosoever is going to be selected by the COC, and then depend on them. And if it is NBCC has a track record, so we don't need to discuss that precisely.
Right.
Also there, on the resolution, only there is a two proposal, one by NBCC and
Suraksha.
otherwise the Suraksha.
Suraksha.
There is no proposal of refund.
Right.
So you'll have to choose one of the two only. So now if you are thinking that you will get the refund, then you will lose this chance also.
Okay,
Right.
Abhishek,
Yes,
I'd like you to comment on this. The Supreme Court said that beyond a certain period of time, a consumer cannot be made to wait, and if he wants his money back, he should get his money back. Right? We did, Prabhakar, you and I did a show with some consumers here, where we talked about the consumer's point was that my money has been taken and other projects have been completed. So if I want my money back, I'm entitled to it. There's no money on the table in the systems as of now, but the consumer, the Supreme Court's verdict was that it's an unreasonable period of time, and if the consumer asks for money, why should we refuse it?
Correct. Now, if you were to ask for money back,
Yeah.
what is that you are going to get? Today, you have to look at it from the 2 point of views. The first point of view is the pendency of insolvency proceeding against the company. Suddenly, it doesn't have the cash in its pocket to pay to the consumer. Therefore, it's facing that problem. The insolvency proceeding is going on precisely for that reason. So therefore, the completion is an aspect which is being considered. As far as right of a consumer is concerned, yes, you are right. But then what is the process? If you go for that process, you go for the liquidation, again you stand in the queue, you will be the last in the queue.
Yes.
You will get your share, 1 of 100 maybe.
Yeah.
1/10 of the 100 also may be possible, because if all the bankers and all the secure
That's
traders were
in liquidation process.
that's what I'm saying. But if the insolvency proceeding is
In
to
a
go on-
resolution process, there is no
Exactly.
provision of a refund.
That's why it's very important
The
to
COC is
understand
not
what is
considering that at all.
what is
That's
happening at the
important
moment.
to understand. In a resolution process, there is no option of refund before the completion. is
Law
over.
doesn't say unless until such proposition is made as a part of an offer, either by NBCC
Right.
or Suraksha,
The
then
vote-
it can be. But
correct.
I don't think so that
I remember
anyone is
it's
offering.
there. So I remember, if I read correctly, NBCC has also provision around 60 crores for some refund, but that's part of the Supreme Court judgment where people have
Yeah.
asked for that.
Two different
So
aspects legally,
they
if you ask me.
they provision something
No,
in the
they are only
proposal.
provisioning to the
Provision.
extent if the people who opted for a refund before the
And-
Honorable Supreme
Yes,
Court.
That's
yes.
different.
And
So they're
for
provisioning
that, if
that.
they still want the refund, then they are making
Yes.
a provisioning of 60 crore.
60
crore
around
rupees.
60.
So Kailash Chaturvedi, if you are part of the original lot of people who asked for a refund,
Went to
when
Supreme Court.
when it
Yeah.
went to the Supreme Court, you can opt for getting your money back. If you are not part of those that group, what happens is that you will not be able to ask for a refund right now. You have to go along with the process and completion. There is something, Prabhakar, that we have been saying, and we should reiterate this. Today what you have is a semi-complete, incomplete, stressed asset, which where you've paid a lot of your money, you haven't got the asset back. What the entire process is moving towards completion of that asset. The day the asset is complete, the asset is more valuable by 30 to 50%.
Yes.
So whatever you can, even if you want to exit, you find a buyer and you exit, you will get 30 to 50% less money today if you exit than when the project is complete. Today, even if it takes 3 to 4 years, I think 4 years is the cap.
Yeah, that's a 4 years.
You- so-
depending upon the status of the project.
Depending on the status of the project. If your project is in one
Early
of those
stages.
towers that is almost complete, the structure is complete and only finishing is left, then you stand a very good chance to get your project, you get served first. In which case, if you get an asset that is free of all encumbrances and you have to sell that in the market, there is a buyer. Because today, Magic Bricks data shows this is one of the most aggressive buying period from end consumers. Anyone who wants a house, and there is endless demand of end users, they are buying the house, but they are buying that house which is complete, which is unencumbered,
Ready
and
to
which is
move
ready to move in. Now, if that is what you're looking for, move, get going. Vote tomorrow. Vote in the next 36 hours so that your
Whenever
vote
the voting
counts.
is open.
Whenever the voting is open, from the time the voting is open for 36 to 48 hours, the voting is there. You would get a mail in your mailbox. You will get an SMS. You can use your property ID to get into the system and vote. But make sure, like we tell everybody, please vote for in India's elections. In this case, in
Correct.
JP's elections, please vote because make your vote count.
They are the candidates.
This is not only your
They are the
right.
candidates
They are the
themselves.
candidates themselves.
This is not only their right, it is your duty.
Yes.
This is something which you owe to your family
Yeah.
and everyone else whom you are associated.
And while we are running this show, and we have a lot more queries that we will be taking, we are running a poll. What would you like to do as a JP buyer? Take a refund or wait for possession? Please also vote in this poll. We would like to know what the mood of the market is, what the mood of the JP buyer is. So please make sure that you take this poll. Let's go on to the next query. We've got Mohit Verma of Pune. When will NBCC start construction on stuck JP projects? There has been enormous delay already and buyers have no clarity on possession
I
dates.
think we had already discussed this
Yes.
point. So
Yeah.
When they are given the period of a 4 year possession, then according to the status of the project, they will start it, and where the project is not taken off till date, you can consider the period is of a 3 year or 2.5 year. When the project is 60% ready, you can consider a period of 1 year. So it depends upon.
Yeah, please go on.
So according to the status of the project is there, then and NBCC will start only definitely the work once the complete project comes in its hand in a legal way. So we have to wait till that period.
Right. And remember, you asked this question probably before we finished our discussion, but you must understand that right now there are two deals on the table, the NBCC and Suraksha. And today the COC is meeting to figure out which one will be accepted. As we all feel, most of the panelists here feel that the NBCC offer has been sweetened to an extent that it has an edge over the Suraksha offer. Now, there was a third offer that should have come from Adani, but that did not come on time, therefore they have been excluded. Now, the ball is squarely in the court of the consumers. 51% of the COC are consumers, and each one of you has one vote. So each one of you needs to vote to make that vote count. There is Karan Mathur says the Supreme Court has declined to stay the Apex Consumer Commission's order, which held that home buyers in JP Infratech Limited can move the Consumer Forum against JIL's parent company, Jayaprakash Associates Limited, for compensation and possession of their respective flats. Can buyers now move to court against and seek compensation from JIL?
Supreme Court order?
As per Supreme Court order, you can do it.
see,
Actually, I think so the factual position here is that most of the allotments, if I correctly calculate, the applications were made to the jail and the allotments were made to the jail. And according to the jail demand letters, the payments were made to the jail. So this is in most of the cases, it is the proposition. So as regards to the going to the consumer court is concerned, basically we consider that as a layman perspective. In a resolution process, you think that the company will be taken over by X from Y or A person. So the company will run. So the contractual agreements, whatever are there, or the legal remedies which are available to them, they can move. And so in this light also the Supreme Court decision says that one can approach to the consumer forum, and it is not covered by the period of section 14 where the
Moratorium.
Moratorium period. So consumer complaints are not at the same pedestal as the other civil suits. So in that regard it is there. You can definitely, if you want, you can file it today, but what the offer is coming up before the COC and what is finalized, that will be binding on everyone based on the majority of the voting.
Right.
And after that, can suppose some buyer is not satisfied, or some buyer thinks that he has not he didn't receive that penalty. To get that penalty completely, can they move to
That is the legal right. So anybody can move anywhere. It
No,
is
what perhaps he's trying
against
to ask is,
Jayaprakash Associates I'm talking,
right,
not against jail.
right.
Can one file a case against JAR still?
No, one can file a case, but right now it is not appropriate for me to discuss in a sense that what will be the outcome of it. Because one side here, let's say I am voting in favor of a resolution, and tomorrow there I am claiming as this thing.
So what is the Supreme Court order in that situation?
No, in that sense it's general order. It's a basically kind of a.
see, everything would depend upon the terms of the agreement of COC. Now, we call it in legal terms the haircut. If the committee decides this is the haircut we take, and all of us take whatever is left on my head. Now, the haircut applies across the board. It doesn't apply to those people who are voting. You choose to vote, yes, you have consciously taken that call. If you don't vote, and still your vote, other people have voted and that passes the muster, that will apply to you. So any right and every right which a consumer has, a home buyer has, will be affected by the ultimate resolution which is
No, but
taken.
here in this case, basically JAL is also one of the promoter.
Correct.
of
Now
the
that
company.
will depend on the terms. Therefore, the terms at which the resolution is passed,
Yes.
or the committee decides
issue
as
is
to
that,
what is.
for example, if I am a home buyer, I am voting today in favor of a resolution, for example, where the proposal of the NBC
Sir, this
is.
was the situation before the Supreme Court also. Then why did the Supreme Court say that you can file a case before the NCDRC?
You can file, but what will be the outcome of that? Filing is a different thing, outcome of that is
So,
different thing.
the outcome
By
of
filing
that
you are not
case-
going to get anything.
Outcome of that case will always depend upon the
On the
haircut
facts.
that you have already got.
On the facts.
So if you have filed, say for example, at the time of filing of the case, your claim was X plus Y, and in the resolution Y goes out and your claim is limited or restricted to S. The outcome of the consumer forum's decision is only going to be X and not X plus Y. So you have modulated the prayer, and the prayer could not be granted X plus Y because his right to claim X plus Y goes away and is now limited to X. Therefore, this voting becomes important that X plus Y remains intact for consumer forum to later decide. So therefore, again coming back to what we had started,
Yeah.
you must go and vote.
You must vote.
Must go and vote. Neeti Singh of Delhi says, what is the deadline for completing the stuck JP projects? Here I'll ask you a question. Let's assume that this voting process happens, most people vote, there is and how long does it take for the actual process? When does the deadline start that from this period to 4 years, the projects have to finish?
Again, now the statute has prescribed a time limit,
Yes.
which Gupta ji has been saying.
Yeah.
But when the statute says, the statute prescribes a period for resolution to complete.
Right.
Now, when the resolution prescribes the time limit,
Yeah.
which is not in the statute but in the resolution itself.
Yeah.
So when NBCC proposes that I am going to complete it in a phased manner, as Gupta ji says, in 4 years' time, that 4-year time now becomes part of the compromise. So call it a settlement, call it a
Yeah.
compromise in
Yeah.
layman's
Yeah.
language. It is that settlement or undertaking given to the insolvency court that will now be abided by the people.
Where they will say that from this period 4 years from
It's
now.
an
You are
undertaking
granting them,
for-
practically you are
Yes.
granting them 4-year period to complete the project
It's an
depending on
undertaking
the
by
status of
the-
the
Up
project.
to
Mine-
4 years.
Yes.
No, Jasdeep, to my understanding,
Yeah.
from the 30th April, that 4 year will start, because resolution has to be completed on
The
30th.
resolution will also have to be accepted.
Resolution has to be first accepted, voted, and then it must be approved by NCLT.
No, but as you people are saying that if on 30th April
They
this
have
is
to
not
approve it, sir.
complete,
If they don't
then it will
approve,
go
If
for the
the
liquidation.
issue is that if it is accepted and voting is started, meaning thereby that you have found out a resolution within a period of 270 days. Now only the approval of the NCLT is required on that resolution plan. So it is not going into liquidation because you have found the resolution within a period of 270 days.
Then after what will happen?
NCLT will approve it and then the project will go on.
How long does that
How
approval
long does
process
that take?
take?
It's
It has to complete
not
within
fair
that.
to comment, but because NCLT is only to a great extent looking at the interest of this thing, and the whole sole decision is of a COC
Yeah.
as such.
Yeah.
So NCLT we are putting up the company is putting up before, or IRP putting up before the NCLT that this is the resolution plan. They just approve it. Now whatever the modus operandi with respect to the creation of SPVs and other issues, there must be some timelines in their plan.
SPV for what?
Special
So
purpose
They
vehicle.
are
For
creating
what?
in this
For
case,
the purpose vehicle there.
for the purpose of the land, they are creating a SPV separately so that it can be offered as security to the banks. And one more
But
thing,
that 4 years will start after all those arrangement
No.
is made, or this will start the day they
as
will
soon
be offered
as
the
that,
company?
from that, in my opinion, subject to the contract otherwise, it should start from the date on which the NCLT approves the.
Exactly.
Yes.
So that approval should come if suppose it is accepted. on
Maximum 30 days or
30th April,
30, 45
30
days.
days.
That again goes
But
back
tell
to
me
the-
another one thing, I mean.
30 days after April 30th.
30th April, yeah.
So you have roughly about a month for the NCLT to approve the entire constitution.
Please clarify one thing. Once the resolution is approved, then it is approved. It is only the NCLT is basically accepting that, right? Considering the offers, other things, it is approving that. So resolution is already found out.
But the query that our consumers asking is, what is the deadline for completing the staff JP
In
project?
a
Deadline
layman's
is 4
language,
years.
if I were to put it, when they say 2023 being the outer limit, that's the outer limit.
That's a limit.
What time NCLT accepts it is immaterial for that purpose.
Yeah.
For the purpose of this query, I am saying, in a completely layman language,
4 years.
That 4 years.
4 years.
Outer
Now,
limit
after
of 4
4
years.
years,
And they will start the moment the word go, the COC grants it approval, it will start its function.
Yeah.
That's the understanding.
Sure.
Once the NCLT approves it, they have to finish it by 2023. That is where the COC is going to agree.
One more thing I want to understand,
Is
that
that-
going by the fate that various these cases have witnessed, now can JP again file a case in some other court, or can they go to NCLAT or somewhere else against the resolution process on appeal?
As far as the resolution process is concerned, they may try to intervene, they may try to do that. That's not a, you know, one thing is very clear, we are in a democratic country. Anybody can file anything
I
before
do
any
not
court
want
of
to
law.
comment on this question.
That's all.
No, no, because I mean the huge sum of money is involved, though certainly they will not also let go that things like so easily. So
It
what
it
are
is up
the
to them to basically decide it, I think so.
You can't take away the legal right of any individual, be it an accused. In a
Anyone.
criminal case also, you can't take it away. So they will have all legal recourse when
like
it's
in
available,
the
but
case of SR,
but-
the entire thing is still going on.
But the appellate forum or any other forum will always be conscious of the fact that this is the first, I would say, if I may say so,
Yes,
and
it
you
is
would know,
first.
this would be the first case where a builder is facing insolvency. Even Company Law Tribunal, Appellate Tribunal and Supreme Court thereafter is not going to be oblivious of this fact. They are going to know this, and they know 20,000 units are waiting and 20,000 home buyers are wanting to go back to their home. Nobody and everybody, I would say, anyone who is touching the case on the legal side, sir, will always have this in back of the mind. Legal aspect, equity aspect and human aspect. One has to decide accordingly.
Today, what
So I
we
think
raised the query with regard to the SR, both are not comparable. Here, the most of the public interest is in this company, right? So, how the things will take place is a different thing. But as he rightly he said that you know, it's a legal right, you can file anything, and what the outcome is going to be there, it is difficult to, you know, comment upon today.
There's Amit Trivedi of Noida who says, will JP return the money or complete houses? Amit, we have been discussing how JP has now, it is in the insolvency, it hasn't gone to insolvency, it is in the resolution process.
Let's hope not.
And till the 30th, you have a right to vote. You have as a COC member, each one of you has a right to vote, and you should be able to push this through to resolution, so that the houses will be complete. And from the time of the resolution, within 4 years, up to 4 years, is when the houses will be given. It depends on the state of the structure. Some structures are almost complete and only finishing is left. Those come first. The ones where structures have to be completed, the maximum period of time that is being given is 4 years. There is Yogesh Singh Nayak who says, my friend wasn't able to file his claim in the JP case. What will happen to his property and can he vote?
According to the, again, if he's a allottee, his all rights are intact. His all rights are intact.
Including the voting right?
No, voting, because he has not filed the
You
claim, so
have,
there cannot be
if you
voting.
haven't filed your claim, you can't vote. But your all other your property is safe.
Yeah, so this is another point I'd
Yeah.
like to
Yeah.
differentiate between the old proposal and the new one.
Yeah.
In the old proposal by NBCC, they said people who have not claimed, they will kind of they will forfeit their rights. In the new one, they said their rights will be intact. So even if you have not claimed through the whole
Whether the
IRP
claim has been
process,
filed or not.
they will get their flats and they will get so their rights are intact. And that's one of the change which has happened in the new resolution. So people should be aware of this, and then they think they go and vote for that.
Sure.
So
They have given some new date also, not to file for the claims.
no,
No, now, if the resolution comes, then.
whatever has happened. Everything is closed on the claims. But yeah, NVCC in the revised offer, they accepted
They
that
specifically
even if your
said-
claims are not there in the IRP register on IRP, you will still get your funds.
Right. There's Rajiv Gupta of Delhi who says, can a RERA case be filed against NBCC if they fail to complete the projects on time? What are the duties of NBCC in case they take over JP projects?
Ask me.
Issue
it's
is
a valid
that once
question.
the, it's
But then there
it's
is
a
an
prospective question, you are presuming that NBCC is going to fail. Yeah, definitely, if any company, whether it's a government company or it's a private company, anybody fails in their discharging their contractual obligations, the doors are open to any court.
And RERA is, even if NBCC takes over the JP project, any ongoing project
It has to
will
be
fall
registered.
under the purview of RERA.
And it has to be
There will be a
registered.
RERA registration
Yeah.
number and it will definitely be monitored by RERA.
Yeah.
But one hopes that with the government's confidence, the court's confidence in NBCC and the way the whole thing is structured, whoever gets this order should not be defaulting now, because there's immense pressure from consumers, from courts, from governments and from the authorities to make sure that this goes under.
There's
So-
one more little addition,
Yeah.
that unlike a general case where only a builder is building it and you have a RERA proceedings, in this case you would have a resolution plan approved by NCLT. So there will be terms there contained in that resolution as to what are the consequences for failure. It's a kind of an undertaking given to a court or a tribunal. So besides RERA, there are protections which will be enshrined, capsuled under the resolution itself. So you don't have to really worry about it, is what my understanding is, though it's too early. But I would believe that there won't be any complication of that nature in future.
And one of the things which is a very basic things, all these problems are happening just because of money.
Yeah.
And when NBCC is taking over and we know that JP's assets are more than what their liability and things, if they're sincere to the project, there will not be any problem of money and cash flows. And if cash flow is there, I don't think so there's any issue of completing the houses.
In
So that is
fact-
the positive which I would see.
Not only the
going
cash
forward.
flow, I can put it, I think so, as a layman, if you think that they are having the infrastructure to do everything,
Yes.
and they are having the adequate money also, and one also has to consider it whenever they are making a resolution plan, then they are definitely taking into consideration the funds inflow and outflow. Even as a home buyer also, the lot of home buyers have to pay the remaining money. That money will also be generated for the same purpose.
We've got Dhiren Singh of Gurgaon who says many home buyers had moved the NCDRC about compensation or a refund with compensation from JIL and JAL. If compensation is given, how will the projects be completed? I think that is.
Question 1 and 3 covered that.
We answered this some time ago, and the thing is that there is money being provisioned for anybody who went to the Supreme Court and asked for a refund. There is money being provisioned to give them the refund. The rest of the buyers will have to wait till the project is completed. There is Rakesh Kumar of Patna who says, don't you think each project should be monitored by the Home Buyers Association so that we know what is happening on the ground? Here I come to Vivek. Vivek, as buyers, are you guys monitoring your individual project, or is it all of JP?
No, so yeah, obviously we would like to monitor the individual projects, but again, it's like a resolution. First, we need to kind of resolve the issues,
Yeah.
and what will be the provision of, because yes, we burned our fingers
Yeah.
by buying from JP, and then because all these things we have been asking from 2014 about escrow account and things,
Yeah.
they did not do, because and then every month whatever money we were paying, we didn't have any control over. Even in this resolution, as Abhishek mentioned, there will be terms and conditions which will protect our rights. We have to see what kind of a provision is for monitoring, because
Right.
yes, we would like to, but then we also need to show whether there is a provision or not, because
Are your groups structured as
yes,
project wise?
it is. So there are multiple groups, there are associations, project wise, and there are people involved in that. So about more than like 5,600 people in different groups, and they are forming. There's one big association called 9A,
Yeah.
which is a form of 9 different projects.
Yeah.
And then each projects have its own association which is registered with the registrar of office as well.
So if
So
you are a
it
JP
is-
buyer, make sure that you are in the umbrella organization, but also make sure you're in the
Individual project.
individual
So-
project groups also.
Right. So my
Groups-
project is in Crescent, so I'm part of that Crescent group.
Yeah. So the group is very powerful today. The groups are advising each other, members are advising each
So
other.
there are WhatsApp group which is like 2,000 people, 200 people, and that at least 100 of WhatsApp group there.
Yeah.
So from communication perspective, if we are today we are able to achieve that target like 34%. If you see some of the earlier resolution, hardly 6%, 10% voting used to happen. Now we have reached to the 34% in the last.
Yeah.
Now if we continue to do this communication, I'm sure we can reach to the 50% also.
Right. Aruna Singh of Noida says, I invested in JP and not able to trace any development happening on the ground. You know that it has gone to the NCLT. How can buyers like me check what is happening in court, NCLT, NBCC, etc.? Aruna, first thing, use your right as a buyer and vote. This is something that we've been saying through the program. We urge you to exercise your right to vote. You're part of the COC. You will be able to vote, and that will help take it to resolution. After that, this is a well reported case, and whether it's the media, whether it is through your own groups and so on, if you're not part of a group, please join up with the group so that you will be able to understand what's happening. There's Mohit Verma of Mumbai who says, I invested in JP Wishtown in a 2 BHK flat. What is the status of the project? How will I get a message that the work on my tower has started? Please advise. If you have been listening to our shows,
Everything is already answered.
Wait for a month, I'm sure messages will start coming.
yes, wait for a month, the messages will
But
start
part
coming.
of the Bridgestone is already is in JAL,
Yeah.
Yes.
Jayaprakash
Yes.
Associate, which is not in NCLT.
Right. So what happens with projects that are in JAL?
That is, remain with the JAL, and
Given
JAL
the-
will implement.
As a builder, they
So please check whether your project is with JIL or JAL. If it is with JIL, it is in the resolution process. If it is with JAL, contact the developer
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
figure out how the process is.
Okay.
There is Ritika of Delhi who says, don't you think the government should start online portal or MBCC should do it for buyers to track all the latest developments happening in the JP case to bring in transparency?
JIL is doing it.
JIL is doing it. Aruna, Ritika, JIL is doing it, so please log in and check.
Yeah.
And Karuna Singh of Noida says, I was not in India when JP demanded buyers to file their claims and I missed my deadline. What will happen? We just answered it. Abhishek said that you cannot vote right now.
But your claim is intact.
But your claim is intact, your investment is safe. Your unit will come back to you. What happens to those JIL projects, Nitin Rajput? What happens to those JIL projects like Buddha Studios where no kind of work was done?
I think it's also part of the resolution.
I don't know. I don't know with this tower particularly whether it is part of the GIL or JIL and where.
Buddha's-
If
Buddha's
it is a
also-
part of the GIL
GIL.
and it is a part of the process, then it will be constructed as per the resolution plan.
Yes.
One.
Okay, and that's where we're going to end this show. Please understand that we're doing this because today the resolution is being discussed. Who is going to construct the JP projects is going to be is very much in your hands. We want to know whether we wanted you to understand that you have a very big right. You should be able to vote. You should be able to push the process through so that it doesn't go into insolvency. If the JP process goes into insolvency, you are the last in the queue, like Abhishek mentioned. The secured creditors will get it. We just want to tell you that when we said, what does the JP buyer want? Our poll that we ran, 50% said they want refund, 50% said they want possession. Please remember, when you wanted your refund, you had to file it with the Supreme Court. Whoever has filed with the Supreme Court, you can, there are funds provision for you to get your money back. The rest of you will have to wait till the construction process is over and you get your unit, after which I think there will be provisions to return your money. Thank you so much for joining us on This Week in Property. I'm Jayashree Kurup, that's Prabhakar Sinha, and we have a very distinguished panel of guests. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.